I'm Tom Grossi, a New York City comedian and diehard Green Bay Packers fan for almost 20 years.
It is caught for the win. Richard Rodgers with a walk-off touchdown. A game ender for the Packers.
In 2015, I created a podcast where each week I talk to fans from opposing teams to share their story and to get yelled at for about an hour for being a Packers fan. Last year, I met amazing people and went to amazing places. And this year, I'm ready to do it all over again.
Make no mistake about it, I will be remembered as a Packer.
Enjoy the show. Grossi Posse Packer Nation, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Packast, the podcast where you don't need to be a Packers fan, but it sure does help. I am your host, Tom Grossi, representing the 1-0 Green Bay Packers. An amazing game against the Jacksonville Jaguars in which the Packers came out on top, 27-23, and there's nothing like a good heart stopper right at the beginning of the season. I have to say, watching this game, I missed the adrenaline rush and then also pure panic and pure my heart is going to explode out of my chest from screaming at the TV so loud kind of feeling that only football, and especially Packers football, brings to me. It was an amazing game, though. And I have to say, I was a little worried about the Jaguars, as we talked about on the episode with Colin on Thursday. The Jaguars, to me, are a big up-and-coming team. Their defense is starting to get scary. Their offense and their receiving threats are really great. You have, of course, Hearns, Robinson, and Julius Thomas as well. Big news coming out right at the beginning of the game, though, that Chris Ivory, their running back that they acquired from the Jets, was hospitalized. So that definitely hurt the Jaguars. I think they could have definitely used a big power running back. But for the most part, the defense held up. I mean, we usually criticize the Packers defense for not being able to kind of win in those clutch moments at the very, very end, not to close games off. But they're starting to do it. I mean, last year, of course, you had the debacle at Arizona, and they let Larry Fitz run all over them. But earlier last year, they also had that game against the Chargers, which literally came down to a fourth down, and the Packers winning here. And same exact thing here. You thought there was an interception that ended the game, and then there was a very questionable holding call that came out and called it back. But the Packers wind up stopping the fourth down pass, which was behind the line of scrimmage. I really didn't understand the play, but I am not complaining. Aaron Rodgers had a great day. He had two TDs, not a ton of yardage. He also ran for one as well, but it's amazing. And I was texting with Colin after the game. It's amazing what this guy can do in the pocket. He just seems so relaxed, so in control. That throw to Davante Adams, about a 29-yarder for a TD at the very end of the half. You have a guy all over him. He's pulling Rodgers' jersey, and he just drops a dime right to Adams. And hats off to Adams as well. He played a hell of a game. He caught that big touchdown. Of course, another big story coming out of this is Jordy Nelson got 6 catches, 32 yards, and a TD. I was very happy to see Jordy in sync. At the beginning, it looked like they were off. They really weren't on the same page. There was a few balls that were thrown, and you could see that they kind of weren't syncing up. But as the game went on, Jordy got more confident. Rodgers got more confident with him, and it was great. You also had Cobb had 57 yards, so he did pretty well. Lacey, he looked good. I mean, they didn't give him a ton of attempts. He only had 14 attempts, 61 yards, which doesn't sound amazing for fantasy, but considering that Lacey has asthma, I mean, when he did run, he looked good. So I was very, very happy with that. And really what he was able to do against that defense, which, as I said, that's a very up and upcoming defense, and I think they're going to be very good. I think the Jaguars are going to surprise a lot of people this year. The Jaguars' future, I feel like they're going to be a team to contend with, and watching what their rivals in the AFC South did yesterday didn't really impress me. I mean, you had the Titans, who unfortunately were defeated by the Vikings. The Vikings really had no offense to speak of, but their defense got them a bunch of touchdowns. And so the Titans fell, which really wasn't looking good. And then kind of their biggest rivalry in the division, you have the Colts, the Colts, it was just an ugly game. They just have really no defense. They have no defense at all. Andrew Luck looked great. He had a great day. The receiving core looks good, but that defense, I mean, the Lions ran all over them. Theo Riddick ran all over them. And that's not really a slight against the Lions. I mean, it kind of is, but Lions aren't known for, like, having an amazing offense. And the fact that they were just giving up points by the bunches and let the Lions win at the very end, I'm really not too impressed with them either. And I think the Jaguars can do very well against that defense. And the Texans, they did beat the Bears, the only loser in the NFC North, being Chicago. Sorry about that. But the Texans did beat them. They didn't look amazingly impressive. You know, I think with their run game, it looks a little better. Brock Osweiler still looks like he, needs to get those kinks out. Lamar Miller had like a ton of touches though. But I think I would not be surprised if the Jaguars wound up taking that division. But the Packers, they squeaked away with a win. So they start the season 1-0, and we look forward to Minnesota, and I'm very, very excited for that game. It's going to be incredible, and I hope we absolutely crush them. But we'll talk about that in a bit. In other news of the league, other games that kind of like stood out to me, you had, of course, the Jets falling to the Bengals, but they're the Jets, so what are you going to do with that? The Raiders and the Saints. The Raiders with a very gutsy call with under a minute left, going for the 2-point conversion and getting it when they could have just kicked the extra point and tied it. So that was really, really cool to see that. And I'm wondering if you're going to start to see more and more head coaches, considering it's just from the 2-yard line, start to go for more 2-point conversions. It's going to be interesting to see. Last night, you also had the Patriots beat on the Cardinals without Tom Brady. Now, I mean, this is one of those things that this helps the Packers because the Cardinals are a powerhouse in the NFC. You had the Seahawks almost losing to the Dolphins, and I was cheering so badly for the Dolphins, but unfortunately they couldn't pull it off at the very end. But the Pats beating the Cardinals are big for a couple of reasons. One, because, again, the Cardinals are dropping down to 0-1. Their offense, David Johnson looked great. Larry Fitzgerald looked fantastic. He got 100 touchdowns career now, which good for him. Their defense looked pretty good, but Carson Palmer, I mean, he looked like an older quarterback on Sunday night. So I don't know if they're going to have the same success as they did last year. Their defense is still good. You still have the running game, and then the wide receivers game. They have receivers, but it's going to be interesting. And the Patriots, I mean, they just go to show that they're in contention every single year with this thing. You had the Patriots going on without Tom Brady. A lot of people, I don't think, gave the Patriots a chance last night, but their defense looked really good, and Garoppolo got it done. So my hat's off to him. A couple big injuries. One was just announced that RG3 has been put on IR. He could come back in November. A big one for fantasy is Keenan Allen, which, of course, I picked him up in like the 2nd or 3rd round this year. I feel like every time Keenan Allen was posed for a huge season last year, got hurt. Everyone thought he was going to do amazing this year, gets hurt. I mean, the guy, he just constantly gets hurt, and you can't trust him injury-wise, but hoping that Keenan Allen's able to make a comeback, not just for fantasy, but you never want to see anyone get hurt. Speaking of fantasy, so I told you a couple episodes ago, I'm in a record 5 leagues this year. I've already wrapped 2 up, I've won, and I'm leading in the other 3, but I have people going Monday night, and considering that's when we're recording, I'm not going to know. Leave it in the comments section if I actually wind up winning or not. If I am able to pull off a Week 1 victory in which the Packers win and I go 5-0 in fantasy, I'm a happy person. So we will see how that goes. Now, in other really exciting news, so this week, of course, we have a Vikings fan on Thursday's episode, but it's not just any Vikings fan. We are bringing back Gregory Daniels, who is a fan favorite from last season. I had Gregory on, twice, and every single time it was like magic. Him and I are just like throw punches at each other and really just try to destroy and cripple ourselves emotionally. That's going to be a hell of an episode, so I hope you check into that on Thursday. Going to be absolutely incredible. And I'm thinking, looking at the Vikings game, I mean, you have Sean Hill, who didn't lose them the game. Adrian Peterson had like nothing, though, when it came to running yards, so it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I don't think that their offense is going to be able to compete with the Packers. The thing that the Vikings have is their defense. Their defense is still scary. Their defense are still bullies. And I think they can do well in containing the Packers, but if it winds up being a shootout, I mean, the Packers are going to take it. So, I mean, we'll see. It's Sunday Night Football. I'm thoroughly looking forward towards that. I mean, it's the new stadium for the Vikings, and what would be better than a good old Packers win? So, I was cheering for the Colts yesterday, but unfortunately they weren't able to get it done. But it looks like the powerhouses right now, just from looking at Sunday's game. I mean, you have the Packers up there. The Seahawks are able to squeak out a win barely against the Dolphins. And I don't know if that's a testament to the Dolphins or that means that the Seahawks have kind of taken a step down. I honestly don't know. But, I mean, we'll kind of see. And I know Russell Wilson, he tweaked his leg a little bit. There's not really any news coming out now how severe it is. So we'll keep an eye on that, because if Russell Wilson goes down, I mean, that's a serious blow for the Seahawks. But we'll see as we go. So tune in. There's a little bit of a shorter episode today, but tune in on Thursday. We're going to have Gregory Daniels back on here. It's going to be a phenomenal show. If you have any questions or comments, just leave them down in the comment section below. Of course, you can always check me out at TomGrossiComedy.com. That's TomGrossi Comedy. Or at Tom Grossi Comedy on Twitter, Tom Grossi on Facebook. You can also check out Packast on SoundCloud, iTunes, and of course, every Tuesday our episode comes to you also via YouTube. Some people checked it out last week. You liked it? Okay, I got a little less death threats than usual, so I'm going to take that as a positive. But thank you so much for tuning in, guys. I will see you on Thursday with Gregory Daniels, our Vikings fan. And as always, 1-0, go Pack Go.